and welcome back to the Sober Doc podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kali Theis, board-certified pediatrician and recovering alcoholic. Today, I want to take some time to talk about friendships, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Is it just me, or is finding and keeping true, authentic friendships one of the harder things in life to do? I don't know, but it seems like an adult friendship is one of those things that always was more stress than it was worth. Fake personalities, tons of girl drama, petty arguments and jealousy, and never truly feeling supported or like a priority for someone. None of that sounds like my idea of a good time. But I do wonder if there's more to friendships than meet the eye. As a child, my closest friends were my sisters. I mean, we were forced to do everything together. I can't remember any activity or event that I attended when one of my sisters wasn't also present. And it is true what they say. Sisters are like built-in best friends until they aren't. As kids, my sisters and I would bicker often, but that's the thing about sisters. The fights never last long. And to this day, we are all still pretty close. But part of me wonders if I missed out on a chance to develop close friendships with other females because I always had my sisters around. Growing up, there were girls in my grade that I would have considered friends at the time, but it never quite felt right. It seemed like no matter what the crowd, I never quite fit in. Always the outcast that wasn't invited along or generally forgotten. I rarely ever had sleepovers or girl groups that spent time together outside of school and sports. I even remember my mom throwing me multiple birthday parties where no one showed up but my family. And my parents just kept telling me that one day those girls wouldn't matter, that I would grow into an adult and find my quote, real friends. And by my senior year, I could see this truth. And I basically stopped associating and communicating with most people, aside from my high school sweetheart and my sisters, of course. And let's not forget, I had my mind set on going to college and becoming a doctor, so I didn't have time for that teenage drama anyways. I started my freshman year at the University of Pittsburgh, and I was paired with the roommate from hell. She was an undecided major and chose all afternoon and evening classes. So essentially, we operated on opposite shifts since my pre-med classes started bright and early at 8 a.m. each day. She would stay up all night listening to loud music and partying in our small dorm room. I tried to branch out to other girls on the floor, but they all only wanted to drink and party on the weekends, and I didn't. Funny in hindsight. But I spent many of my weekends traveling home to be with my family and my boyfriend because I didn't want to participate in those activities. Again, never really fitting in. I often only saw these girls after they would come back home drunk with a $5 pizza in hand, finding me in the lounge room still studying for those pre-med exams. I did make one close friend that was also in a pre-professional program and took her studies more seriously. But she came from a very different socioeconomic background, and I felt like there was many things that we just didn't mesh well on, at least not in ways that I would have wanted. After a while, I never heard from her again, and by the time I went off to medical school, I was back to having just my sisters and my boyfriend. Looking back, it seems like medical school is where many doctors form tight friendships. They form these study groups of sorts and spend their days and nights together, grinding through classes, labs, and those never-ending exams. I again struggled to fit in. I didn't gel well with my roommates, as they didn't seem to need to study as much as I did. It wasn't until my second year that I met a girl in the class below me, and we were like two peas in a pod, doing everything together. But then all of a sudden, my third year, everything shifted. I am still not quite sure that I understand what happened, but it was like out of nowhere, she didn't need me anymore and had moved on to other friends. And I was really hurt by this. But I knew that in another year, I would be off to residency, so I had to let it go. Now, residency can be the ultimate friendship maker. It's like Meredith Grey and Christina Yang on Grey's Anatomy when they found their person. I like to think of it as a form of trauma bonding, working those long, grueling hours together, having to be there for one another in both the good and the bad times. It really does form a connection between people that can be very strong. Unfortunately for me, I never found this person. I was a newlywed living with my husband for the first time. We were trying to navigate a new city, new jobs, new people, and it seemed like I never found anyone within my program that truly related to me or my experiences. And then the drinking hit, so it's no wonder I couldn't form any connections. In Mel Robbins' book, Let Them, she discusses what she calls the three pillars of friendship: proximity, timing, and energy. She explains that friendships can go through ebbs and flows depending on the status of each of these pillars. Proximity is the physical closeness to a person, allowing for more frequent in person interactions, making it easier to connect and maintain a friendship. When you are in the trenches of medical school and residency together, spending extended hours in classes or hospital shifts side by side, it's easier to develop a tight bond. Once you graduate and move away, those friendships often become harder to maintain because organizing trips to see one another becomes much more difficult and can leave you feeling both physically and emotionally alone. Timing refers to the stage of life and experiences in which you are in, and these can lead to common interests and events for closeness with a friend. For example, people with young kids tend to relate better to one another than, say, those that are single without children. This pillar is a little bit more difficult for those of us in medicine, as people enter their medical training from all points and paths in their lives. But it is often found that those with children tend to band together, or those that are young and single spend more time together, etc. Essentially, like finds like. The third pillar of friendship, energy, refers to that feeling of just clicking with someone. You know, when you meet someone right away and know that you're just going to get along. Basically, the did we just become best friends moment. You can't really explain it, but they just get you. I think this is often one of the hardest parts of friendship, especially in medicine. It seems like medical training and practice make it difficult to make and keep friends long term. From the constant moving for school, going through phases of life at different times than those outside of medicine, and trying to show up as your authentic self, it's no wonder we often find ourselves isolated and alone as doctors. It wasn't until 2021 that I had found and made what I consider to be a real best friend. Actually, she found me. She tells the story that she met me in the office as I was new to her daughter's pediatric practice. She went home and low-key stalked me on Facebook. I'm unsure if she was trying to figure out if I was a trustworthy pediatrician or not, but what she found was that we had a lot of shared energy. It only took a few funny reels and liked posts before we were chatting away as if we'd had known each other for a lifetime. And what is so interesting about our friendship is that even from the beginning, we truly only meet one of the three of Mel Robbins' friendship pillars. We function in very different stages of our lives. She is married with children, building a homestead in her small hometown. I am single, childless, building my career as a city girl who constantly travels. We technically live only 25 minutes apart, but we see each other only maybe 3 times a year. But it's the energy. There's just something about the way that we understand one another, despite all of our differences. It's funny because I often say I have no idea how we are friends because we rarely like the same things, but I think that's what's so special. We've never judged each other and have been nothing but accepting and supportive of those very differences. She is honestly one of the kindest, most giving, beautiful souls that I have ever met, and I hope we never lose this bond. And I hope that you find a person like this, but you can't have mine. I think another piece of the friendship puzzle is that making new friends feels so transactional nowadays. Either women message me because they have children and they want to use my career to their advantage, using me for medical advice and favors, or other professional women often seem to want some sort of tit for tat relationship. They become friends with me for an exchange of services or as a networking opportunity. For example, I'm headed to a women physicians conference this weekend, and have already been messaged by other attendees as a sort of sales pitch for their services or products. Why can't we just be friends without any exchange of expectations? And is it just me, or are females full of drama and lies? Whether it's purposeful or not, I have always had the experience that female friends are never actually there for you in the ways that they pretend to be. I mean, just this year, I was hurt by somebody I considered a close friend. Does this type of betrayal ever go away? And because of all of this, I'm not a girl's girl. I never have been, and it's unlikely that I ever will be. I have been hurt by too many females in my life to be able to trust them in ways that traditional friends do. And quite honestly, this is a piece to my story of alcoholism. I read somewhere recently that addiction lacks connection. There is current research to suggest that addiction is not just the pleasurable effects of substances, but rather it's about the inability to connect in healthy ways with other humans, making addiction partly a social disorder. In one study, where rats were given a choice between a placebo and a drug, they always chose the drug, even to their death. But when given those same choices, along with alternative activities to play with other rats, they chose those activities over the drugs. But with humans, these activities are much more difficult to come by, as we need to be able to trust and emotionally attach to other humans to feel connection, making those of us with a weak or no close friendship more likely to choose the drug and lead a life of addiction. And I mean, it makes sense. So often did I feel a void in my life, whether it was a lack of a supportive friend during the hard times or no one there to celebrate the good times. I just never had that connection. So instead, I turned to alcohol because it was always there. I would go out for dinner alone. At least I had my wine. I would take a solo trip. I could always find a cocktail. I would want to celebrate or commiserate a big event. Who needs friends when you have vodka? And all of those times that I tried to get sober on my own, I was unable to maintain a life in recovery because there was no connection to anybody else. It wasn't until I started opening up about my addiction to those closest to me, finding myself a safe space within my church, and leaning on my best friend that I had found longevity in sobriety. Now, when I have a craving or a celebration or a strong emotional moment, I message someone. I know I'll likely still never have a group of gals to go to brunch with or to take a girls' trip, but that's okay because I know that when I really need them, I have my few people that would do anything to support me, and that's all that matters. So find your people and love them hard. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Sober Doc podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kali Theis, and I'll see you next time.